This is part 3 of Andrew's adventures in Friar Wood. Be sure to check out parts 1 and 2 before listening to this part, otherwise things might not make sense. Anyway, let's begin with Andrew's adventures in Friar Wood. The other dinosaurs had now spotted him. There was no going back now. What had he done? Not one of the dinosaurs came up to him. They seemed genuinely afraid. He was sure that if the T-Rex had been here, it would certainly not have backed off. "Come on, boy. I'm not going to hurt you. Look, lovely tuna sandwiches," he said. Andrew walked towards the dinosaurs. He was getting very brave now. Slowly, a Diplodocus craned his huge head forward. It startled him, and he fell over. None of the other dinosaurs made any movement, but the huge long-necked monster edged closer. Andrew lay on the grass, and with the monster almost over him, he could see right up its nose.
Ew.
What a huge animal it was, all neck and tail. It was far bigger than the Brontosaurus. He was about to scream, but his voice seemed to have gone when two of the other Diplodocuses edged closer. Andrew still had the tuna sandwiches in his hand, and he threw them to the ground, hoping that the dinosaurs would take them and leave him alone. He realized that by the size of these monsters, they would hardly taste his sandwiches. He had no alternative. He had no defense. He had to do something. He did the only thing he could think of. His voice came back and he started singing. He sang nursery rhymes. He sang Christmas carols, even though it wasn't Christmas. He just sang whatever came to him. He didn't know why, he just did. After a few minutes singing, Andrew realized he was still in one piece. Slowly sat up. The dinosaurs were all sitting on the ground listening to him. As strange as it seemed, Andrew was sure they were smiling at him. The dinosaurs, there must have been about 10 of them, no longer seemed afraid. Andrew, on the other hand, was not entirely at ease, as 10 huge dinosaurs between 40 to 80 feet in length and taller than the tallest elephants sat in front of him. What was he to do? He quietly rummaged in his bag to see if he had anything left to eat. All he had was 2 boiled sweets. He quietly unwrapped them so as not to unnerve his newfound friends and threw them into the middle of the group. One of the smaller Diplodocuses reached his long neck across and stuck the sweet into its mouth. The other sweet lay on the grass for a minute or two before a Brontosaurus reached out his long neck and did likewise. Andrew began to get his confidence back, and he stood up. 4 of the dinosaurs had fallen fast asleep. The others looked as though they would be asleep very soon as well. The books he had read were true when he thought. The dinosaurs all around him were plant eaters and were no danger to him. But the sheer size of them gave you second thoughts. One of the baby Brontosaurus nudged his Andrew's hand, and as he hadn't expected it, he got quite a fright. This was no ordinary baby. This baby was at least 25 feet long, but after the initial shock, he held out his hand. Pat the baby's head. What a strange feeling it was. Here he was stroking a dinosaur. Nobody was going to believe this. Surely it wasn't true. It must be a dream, but no, definitely was true. 2 of the other dinosaurs now stretched their long necks to him, and he stroked them too. The skin of them was like nothing he had ever felt before. It was a very strange sensation. The skin was very dry, but not really scaly. It was very hard to describe. One thing was certain in Andrew's mind. He did feel very small when he looked up at these enormous creatures. But even so, Andrew now began to feel very safe among these huge but very friendly monsters. Monsters was not quite the right word. They were not monsters in the sense of the word, that they were killing machines. But what else could you call 60, 70, 80 foot long animals? Andrew began to wonder what time it was. He had forgotten all about Joe and the others, but now decided he must try and find his way back. How he wished he could take his new friends with him. The problem was, how could he get one on the bus? As much as he would have liked to have stayed longer in this new world, he thought he had better make tracks and find his way back. As he made his way back through the woods, he turned to see the dinosaurs for one last time. But as hard as he looked, he could see nothing. They seemed to have disappeared as fast as they had appeared. Up ahead of him, he at last saw the opening in the hedge from which he and Joe had came through, which now seemed hours ago. As he crawled through, he heard voices in the distance. "I do hope that's Joe and the rest of the class," Andrew said out loud. "They take people away for talking to themselves, you know," laughed Miss Latham. Andrew looked up. "Miss Latham, I'm sorry. I wasn't really talking to myself. I'm just relieved to get back here in one piece. And I'm sorry if I've held the bus up or... Hey, one thing at a time, Andrew. What are you talking about? I'm sorry, but you seem to be talking in riddles," said a rather confused Miss Latham. "Well, I've been away for hours. Joe came to look for you and I was left all on my own with the dinosaurs." "Just a minute. Dinosaurs? Did you say dinosaurs?" "Yes, miss. They were back. Have you had a fall? Are you sure you're okay? So you just seem to be talking in riddles and rambling a little bit. I think we best get you home, my boy." "But miss..." "No buts. Come on. Let's go and see Mr. Harker. You haven't been eating any of those mushrooms, have you? I did tell you all not to eat any of the things that you found. Well, did you or didn't you?" "No, miss. I only ate my sandwiches. I gave the dinosaurs some of my sandwiches as well, miss. They liked them, miss." "There you go again. Dinosaurs. Andrew, you must stop reading all those books if it's going to have this effect on you." "But it's true, miss. Ask Joe. He'll tell you. He had a camera." Then Andrew remembered that the film in Joe's camera had been ruined when he dropped it. Then Andrew thought for a moment and asked Miss Latham what time it was. "It's just gone 12:30, Andrew. That's what I mean," said Miss Latham, who was now starting to get a bit worried by Andrew's ramblings. "All this talk of dinosaurs and being missing for hours, I don't know what you're talking about. Come on, there's Mr. Harker over there with the rest of the class by the big oak tree. Let's go and have some lunch and we'll see what he has to say about the matter." "But miss, I had my lunch hours ago," said a very confused Andrew. "There you go again. For the last time, we haven't been here for hours, and you haven't been missing either. Now come on," said a rather irritated Miss Latham. While all the children sat around the huge oak tree for dinner, Miss Latham took Mr. Harker to one side and explained everything that Andrew had said. Mr. Harker didn't seem too concerned, saying that he knew Andrew was very interested in prehistoric monsters and that he was probably just living out one of his fantasies. Miss Latham, on the other hand, was a bit concerned, as Andrew had described all that he had done and seen to her, and it just seemed too realistic to be untrue. But it obviously couldn't be true, could it? No. What was she thinking of? Dinosaurs died out millions of years ago, didn't they? But something that Andrew had said made her think. Was it possible to go back in time? Could you really pass from one world to another without any time lapse in at all? Mr. Harker patted her shoulder and she jerked her head suddenly. "Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Latham. I didn't mean to startle you, but you seemed a million miles away just then," apologised the headmaster. "Oh, it's alright, Mr. Harker. I was just daydreaming, thinking things over about Andrew. Do you really think he's okay? Do you not think we should tell his parents what he said today? If we told all the kids' parents what they had been saying, dreaming about or whatever else they're going about, we'll get no work done, would we? No, I think our Andrew has a very vivid imagination. He'll be okay. Look at him now. Both of them looked across to where he and Joe sat. It's true he looked okay, no signs of anything wrong at all. They were just sitting talking and giggling like the kids that they were. But Mr. Latham wasn't so sure. There was just something, but she didn't know what. Lunch was finished and everything was packed away. All the samples that had been collected were packed into a large box that Mr. Harker had brought from the bus. Then all the kids were told to get back on the bus. It was time to go back to school. As the bus pulled out of the car park, Andrew turned to look into the woods one last time, saying to himself I will be back here someday to once again go to his secret world. After all, no one believed him, so his secret was safe. As the bus pulled out into the road to head back to school, a cloud blocked out the sun and there was a deafening crash, and the ground shook. Sounds like thunder, said Mr. Harker. Yes, maybe, thought Andrew, but where had he heard that noise before? He smiled to himself and lay back in his seat, reliving the day's events. It had been the best day out of all time. So that is the end of the first story in a series of stories about Andrew and his adventures in Friar Wood. I really hope you enjoyed this. This was written by Geoffrey Charlton. As well as that, we've got plenty more stories to come. If you are interested, do let me know in the comment section below and give me your opinions. Can I improve any parts of the story narration or the editing, etc.? And yeah, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe as well. That really does help the channel grow. And thanks again for watching, and we shall see you very soon.